Good evening. Here in California, in the primary tomorrow, people have the rare and no doubt pleasing opportunity to vote their taxes down, to tell the politicians that they will pay this much and no more. Proposition 13 it's called, and it's an absolute flat ban on how much property tax they can charge homeowners. It is thought to be about as much a vote against big, expensive, wasteful government as it is against the property tax. And it seems that nobody loves government anymore. Here's Don Harris.
By far the most controversial of the tax reform measures is Proposition 13. Simply put, this amendment would roll back the assessments on all property to the 1975-76 levels. It would allow assessments to increase at the rate of only 2% per year, and it would limit property taxes to 1% of that assessed value.
In terms of taxes paid, that means the owner of a $60,000 home in Los Angeles would find his taxes reduced from about $1,400 a year to about $600 a year. Proposition 13 applies to all property, businesses as well as homes. Big companies would get big tax reductions. Pacific Telephone, for example, will receive a tax cut of about $130 million if Proposition 13 passes. Proposition 8 is an alternative tax reform proposed by the state legislature, frankly, because the legislators were afraid the voters would approve Proposition 13. Proposition 8 would allow businesses to be taxed at the present rate, but would offer homeowners a 30% cut in taxes. Proposition 8 would place a limit on increases in spending by local governments, but would allow state spending to increase at about the same rate it has in the past. And since Proposition 8 does nothing to limit assessments, it's possible that rising assessments could wipe out the homeowner's 30% tax reduction. Because of assessments that often rise more than 100%, because the state has a budget surplus of about $5 billion that the governor and the legislators have not seen fit to redistribute to taxpayers, California voters are angry. Proposition 13, with its 1% limit on property taxes, seems likely to pass tomorrow. There have been predictions of severe cutbacks in schools, in police and fire protection, in garbage collection and other essential services if Proposition 13 passes. But the man who is co-author of the tax reform measure says the state will thrive.
And I think we're going to have the biggest business boom in California we have ever had. And in a sense, this frustrates me for one reason. I'm trying to cut the taxes, and when we get through, the state's going to collect more than he ever did. And that's a little frustrating for me, to be honest about you.
You mean because of a boom in the economy?
That's right.
Howard Jarvis critics quote a report from a UCLA business forecasting project, which says that more than 450,000 jobs will be lost. That same report says the state's unemployment rate will climb from just above 7% to more than 10%. After the voting tomorrow, we'll know which argument the voters believed. Don Harris, NBC News, Los Angeles.
There are many who believe this is the beginning of something that will go far beyond California. And it is true that 20-odd states already have something in the works more or less similar to Proposition 13, an attempt to control what they see as government accustomed to spending the public's money as if there were no end to it. So it is possible this might be the beginning of something like a second whiskey rebellion, going far beyond California and perhaps eventually even to Washington.